And I am going to start us off with just like a little meditation, like we usually do in our free talks, just to get us centered and grounded and present. So if it's safe to do so, you can just gently close your eyes. And just become aware of the breathing. Just that beautiful rhythm of in-breath followed by out-breath. Just a beautiful tide that is with you all throughout your day. Just the breath rolling in and the breath rolling out. And just as the tide brings things to you and then takes things back to the ocean, just allowing that in-breath to bring peace and calm and relaxation. And just allowing on that out-breath to let go of any and all tension. Just breathing in the fullness of this now moment. And breathing out any past and future, which are really only thoughts anyway. Allowing yourself to be here now, the only time that actually exists. And allowing yourself to really inhabit the body. Just allowing presence in the fullness of the body, not just the attic of the mind, living in the whole house of the body. And just feeling through the soles of your feet, just feeling that connectedness to Mother Earth, to Gaia, and just allowing her to resource you through the soles of your feet. Just allowing her energy to move in and follow the natural intelligence, just moving to wherever the body needs it. Allowing her beautiful golden energy to flow fully into the body, into every nook and cranny. And also welcoming in through the top of the head, just the beautiful divine white light. Just allowing that energy to cascade into you, over you. Just washing away any and all cares. Just resourcing you. Washing you clean. Resetting everything to factory settings of source. And as those energies settle and calm and come into a stillness, just gently bringing attention to the heart space. The subtle sense of aliveness and love. It seems at first to be located maybe in the heart. But really, this heart space is a spaceless space, a locationless space. And when we are in our heart spaces, there is but one space, one heart space, one love, one interconnectedness. It seems as if we have just arrived there and merged into it, but actually, this is what always is. And so, from this one place that we are, we listen tonight. We take in the truth. And as you listen tonight, you are listening to yourself. You are having a conversation within yourself, a conversation about the nature of truth, the nature of love, and what you are. Amen. And so just keeping an anchor there in the heart, keeping an awareness of the intelligence of the heart, and that we can always process information through this vehicle of intelligence and not the mind. Keeping this awareness, gently start coming back, gently opening your eyes, coming back into awake, alert awareness. Maybe having a little stretch or a little drink of water, just in feeling yourself just really grounded in your body. And just ready to share this wonderful gift of time we get to have with one another. And the blessing of getting to share this time with Rob and my beloved teacher, Helen.
Thank you, Liesel. Yeah, we're very excited about this. This is the first time, as you know, that we've done something like this with Helen. We've been studying with her for about 3 years now. And as Liesel said, she's a beloved figure in our lives, and it's just made a huge difference on our spiritual path. And so we wanted to share her with all of you and introduce her to all of you. And we will do that in a few minutes. But first, I want to make some comments about oneness, and then I'll turn it over to Liesel to also make some comments about oneness. The first thing I want to remind you of, those of you who have been with us before, you've probably heard me talk about the 5 main reasons why we plan big challenges for ourselves before we're born. And I'm not going to review all of that tonight. That isn't our topic. But I do want to remind you that one of those 5 reasons is service to others. Service to others is something that I've seen in literally every single pre-birth plan I've ever looked at. It's always there in one form or shape of another. The way I understand the orientation towards service is that it's a natural expression of oneness consciousness. So in other words, if you and I are back on the other side and we're planning an incarnation together, if you experience your oneness with me, if you experience that we are literally one being, then of course you will want to be of service to me. And conversely, if I experience that you are literally me, then of course I will want to be of service to you. So this orientation towards service, which again is in every pre-birth plan I've ever looked at, I think is just a natural expression of oneness consciousness. I want to call your attention to one of the stories in one of the books. In the second book, Your Soul's Gift, there's a chapter about the pre-birth planning of alcoholism. And the gentleman who is the subject of that chapter, his name is Pat. Pat had had a number of past lives in which, from his perception, he lost his connection to God. He lost his connection to the oneness. And in the life review after those incarnations, he saw that this had happened. And so he wanted to have another lifetime or seeming lifetime in which he reestablished his oneness, his perception of oneness. And this is one of many reasons why he planned the experience of alcoholism. He planned not only to experience alcoholism, but literally decades of alcoholism. He wanted to experience quite severe alcoholism. And the hope pre-birth, which is actually how it played out, was that this experience would be so intense, so severe, such an extreme experience of separation consciousness, the opposite of oneness, that it would bring him to his knees, where he would call out to God for help. And that is literally how it played out. When he was middle-aged, the alcoholism was so bad that there was a moment where he literally collapsed on his knees on his kitchen floor and cried out to God for help. And Pat will tell you that was the moment that his life turned around. 3 weeks later, he was in rehab, and he feels that he has been able to reestablish, at least to some extent, his connection with God and his feelings of oneness with God and the universe. Now, you might ask the question, and I certainly asked this question, if somebody wanted to experience oneness, why choose something like severe alcoholism that is going to create the opposite of that experience? Well, that was actually the whole point, the contrast. There's not sufficient contrast to oneness on the other side, but that extreme contrast that Pat experienced gave him both the opportunity and the motivation to reconnect with God. Also, the experience of such extreme contrast gives him now an enhanced understanding and an enhanced appreciation for what oneness is. This is what I called in the books a learning through opposites life plan. That experience of extreme separation makes the reconnection, the re-knowing, the remembering of oneness that much sweeter, that much deeper, that much richer, that much more beautiful. The other thing I wanted to share with you before I turn things over to Liesel, in the same book, the second book, Your Soul's Gift, there's a long section of a channeling from Jesus where I actually ask him to talk about his pre-birth plan and his life challenges in the incarnation as Jesus. And credit here to Pamela Krabbe, who is the channel in the Netherlands who channeled this. He talked a little bit about oneness, and I want to read you what he says. I don't want to paraphrase Jesus. You should hear his words for yourself. So this is in the section called My Life Challenges. He says, quote, "When I started my human life on earth, my soul knew that I was to bring in a new kind of consciousness, a consciousness to which many people, and certainly the political rulers of that day, were not open. It was my plan to be a public figure and to touch the hearts of like-minded souls. There was a group of people waiting to be awakened by my appearance on earth at that time. This group was meant to create an opening for Christ consciousness on earth. I could not fulfill the mission on my own. I depended on like-minded people to pick up my message and spread it across the world. Many of you reading this book are part of this group of souls. I would add to that Many of you who are here tonight are part of that group of souls. Many of you were alive around that time, and on the soul level, you had made a vow to bring a new type of awareness to Earth. You may call it Christ consciousness or simply the awareness that we are one, connected by the same flow of life that holds the universe together and sustains all that is. Human beings are essentially the same, and it is this sameness that, if recognized, brings us together and enables us to reach out to one another with a sense of compassion and fellowship. So that's a little bit of what Jesus had to say about oneness. Liesel, back to you.
Yeah. So, you've heard us talk a lot about, over the last few years here, a lot about ascension, right? And this transformation that humanity and the earth is undergoing. And really, what is happening is it's a transformation from separation consciousness into unity consciousness or oneness consciousness. So we are going, humanity as a whole, as a species, is going from a consciousness of a pretty extreme separation where, the typical mindset is, I am me and I need to take care of myself and you are you and, I can take things from you, etc. But we're going into this more expanded consciousness of unity consciousness, where you could think of it almost like what it must be like to be a bee. So if you think about what it would be like to be a bee, as a bee, I imagine you would have a sense of yourself as that individual bee, but you would also have a knowingness of yourself as the hive. You would be the bee and the hive simultaneously. And that is really what we're going, what humanity is going into is a sense of, yes, I'm looking from a vantage point. I'm looking from this one lens. Yet also I have a knowingness of myself as the whole. And there's not that sense of separation. And I think a lot of people can get really discouraged by what's going on in the world. But really, what's going on in the world is actually a very good sign. It's like the collective body of humanity purging poisons from itself. It's kind of like if in the system you had infection in the system, it would come to the skin in as a boil. And so we see a lot of boils in our society right now, right? And on the surface, that can make us feel like things are going wrong. But really, it's a good sign. It's the collective body of humanity purging those poisons, allowing us to see them in the light of consciousness, in the light of awareness. Um, One way that you can kind of get a sense of oneness is to recognize that actually the universe is holographic in nature. And so if any of you have participated in our regression workshops, you probably heard me talk about this holographic nature of the universe. And how a hologram works is that within every seeming part, the entirety is still always contained. So, for instance, if I had a hologram of Marilyn Monroe and I were to seemingly zoom in on just a little portion of that hologram, the entirety would still be contained. Um, and that is really a good way to look at the nature of reality is that within each and every one of us is actually the entirety of the universe. So it's not just that there is oneness and it's spread out throughout the universe and there's me in it and you in it, etc. There's also this aspect to oneness where all of the universe is in me. And all of the universe is in you, and each and every one of you, and literally all of the universe is in this coffee cup. And the mind has a hard time with that, but that hologram analogy is a good way, good bone to throw the mind when it's trying to conceptualize these things. Um, Another thing that I want to touch on is that sometimes we talk about synchronicities and miracles, etc. And really, those are the oneness just showing itself. It's actually it's actually the case that miracles are the most normal thing in the world, and synchronicities are the most normal thing in the world. It's actually, in a strange way, um, kind of more of a feat that miracles don't happen on a more frequent basis. Because if you think about it, it's just one giant consciousness. So that's why it can create all of these seeming synchronicities, etc. And the only reason why miracles don't seem to happen, just back to back to back to back, is because we still have these blinders of seeing through the lens of separation going on. But as you drop those blinders, you will find that miracles become very commonplace in your life, and you will find just things just sort of flow in this beautiful, effortless way. It's as if you've gone from your body just being your body to kind of like your body is the entirety of the universe. So it's like one organized unit, one organism in a way. So that's what I wanted to share on oneness. And and I think now we'll kind of turn things over to Helen. I just want to say, just love Helen so much. I just this is so exciting to be, doing this with her, and she has just made such a tremendous difference in my life and in Rom's. Um, those of you who know me know that I channel a collective consciousness that Rob and I affectionately call the beings of light. And there used to be, when I first started channeling, there was much more of a separate sense of separation between Liesel and the beings of light. And there was this sense that I would just sort of drop into this unity consciousness where the beings of light seemed to be present. But as I have gotten deeper in my own awakening, of which Helen has been absolutely instrumental, I find that it's more and more that I'm kind of hanging out in that frequency as well, in that state of consciousness. And so much of that has to do with the wisdom and loving guidance of Helen over these last few years. We'll maybe talk about this a little more later on, but if you are available to take her 5-week course, I can't recommend it more strongly. That was actually the Dissolving the Ego course was our Rob and my entry into Helen's work, and she's just a gift to humanity. So if it calls to you at all, I would strongly recommend taking her course. And so now I think we're gonna kind of turn it over to Helen, and then we can kind of maybe have a little back and forth in a little bit.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's just beautiful words, and it's not often I'm lost for words, but what you said really touched me deeply, and I'm really grateful to be here tonight as well. And so thank you for having me. And uh, Rob, what you said in the beginning about being of service as part of that oneness, it's so true. And for me, I always felt that calling, but I didn't know how that would show up for me, how that would manifest. And yeah, life has a strange way of putting you in the right place at the right time. And when I was still living in England, it must be, gosh, nearly 20 years ago now. And I heard of this person going to speak in Manchester about this new book you had. And I remember going along with my friend to your talk there. And Manchester, if you don't know Manchester, it's just a city in England. And suddenly this whole world opened up for me listening to you. This sense of I am here for a reason. I am here for a purpose. And how can I give something back? And there was this fire that was lit that night inside, which is still raging today in my heart. And it's just so beautiful to have found a way to be of service and to give something back for all that's being given to me. And yeah, Lisa, I loved the way you use the analogy of the hologram, and it's a beautiful way. And you described the kind of sense of a upgrade that we receive in our sense of self, that I'm not just this. I am, the universe is my body, is really where we're all heading. It was so inspirational what you were speaking about, that this shift that we're going through, even though it looks like something really terrible on the outside, is really bringing close to us what we really want to focus on in this lifetime, what we came here for, and what help we can each be. And there is something for each of us that we can, a gift that we have that we can give and contribute with. And they don't have to be spectacular. Sometimes they're very seemingly ordinary, but done in an extraordinary way. The way we speak to other people and the way we interact with other beings. It says who we are. And for everyone here, you wouldn't be here tonight if you weren't so far along that journey already. So it's really super exciting to be with these really mature group of souls here. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where we go with this conversation tonight.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I think I'd like to ask Helen what your perspective is on the soul and oneness. Because I remember when I first came to your work, well, I had a lot of, prior exposure to the concept of oneness and some experiences of oneness, but I always found myself sort of struggling to reconcile the two. And I know that there's that, and I've heard you use it before, as well as some other spiritual teachers. I think it's an excellent analogy. There's that analogy of the wave and the ocean. But I was just wondering what else what you might have to share on the seeming simultaneity of being both oneness and seeming to be a soul?
Good question. Um, I think for me, you kind of spoke about that really well already, where you spoke about having a sense of being here with a purpose, and I'm paraphrasing what you said, obviously, but also having that deeper sense of understanding of the oneness, and that each soul is a unique and individual expression of that oneness, as if the oneness wants to experience itself in every which way it can, from that sense of love and creation and creativity, and knowing that you are kind of all of this. There's this deep-seated safety and in a more capacity, at least for me, to remember what was planned for this lifetime. So we've got a little clue where we're heading, and for me, the analogy that always helps as well is to imagine a jewel. If the oneness was a jewel, it has an infinite number of faces on that jewel, and each one is slightly different in some way, but they're all joined together. None of them are separate. Each soul is like one of these facets, or faces, and sparkles in a unique way. And the wholeness of that oneness couldn't be the same without any one of those missing.
Mm.
And as we start to remember, as we evolve more, that who we really are, that we aren't really separate, we can celebrate then our uniqueness and our individuality without it bringing a sense of separation. It moves more into a movement of oneness, we could say. The soul is the first movement of that oneness.
Mm. Beautiful. Beautiful. I would like to also hear what it's like to live, you know, absolutely as oneness. To I would like just the opportunity to share with everyone what it's like to be Helen, to be a really, really awakened being.
Yeah, so that's a really big question. A nice, easy question for me. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
Um, it's it's one of those paradoxes, I think, of being. It feels quite extraordinary because there is this deep-seated sense of peace and safety, um, knowing that nothing and nobody is separate to you. There's a sense of being completely safe and at home, and a peace that just never goes away, and a joy that begins to kind of bubble up to the surface, uh, and bubble over sometimes. Uh, and for me, finally, the ability to be compassionate to others. It wasn't always that way when I felt I was separate to other beings. But there's always this sense of newness about every moment as well, without the sense of time pressing down on you. There's a freshness for each moment and an ability to be present in each moment. Um, and in a very ordinary human way as well. The even the ordinary seems extraordinary, just the
Mm.
capacity to really feel at home in this body, in my life. I'm a mother and a wife and a sister and all those things. And most of my journey at the beginning, I was just trying to get away from this physical plane. And like, I never signed up for this, I'm pretty certain. But
Me too.
yeah, just coming back around full circle to I actually feel at home in my life, both the good and the bad. Um, it's just an ability to meet it, an intimacy with life, and being able to really be there for someone is perhaps one of the best gifts of it, that I'm no longer just lost in my head all the time, and actually really just being able to be present for someone. It's such a gift. So it's extraordinary in some ways, but then also just really very ordinary. I'm here living my life, but I'm just really finally enjoying it, the ups and the downs. So
Mhm.
life is kind of, it's lived in that paradox of knowing when this body goes, nothing's really going to change for me. But while it's here, I'm absolutely in love with this life now. And I'll always be so grateful for that. It wasn't that way before.
Yeah, when you
Well,
said enjoying the little things, it made me think of I remember you sharing once at retreat that like everything you experience is kind of like a unique little sculpture. It's like everything is new, like, just even this Kleenex box, like how the Kleenex is new. And I found myself starting to experience life more and more that way.
Mm.
So it's really been beautiful.
so I know that this is a big question too, but Helen, if somebody wanted to experience oneness, well, what can they do?
That's a good question. I think again, it's something we've already touched upon. It starts in the heart. It starts with for me, it was definitely this feeling that there must be more to life than I was experiencing, and a deep longing to live from a deeper place, where there wasn't this constant sense of unworthiness and fear in the background, which had been there my whole life. So I loved what you shared about in the beginning, Rob, about just that moment where you just ask for help, where you're on your knees, and life brought me to that kind of situation in the middle, the worst of my depression. And it really all started from this authentic um, prayer, but it wasn't eloquent. It was just, I just need help, and we don't have to get to that kind of place before we ask for help. We can ask for help now, and just to intend the intention to begin to recognize our oneness is going to begin to move everything. But most of all, the recognition it's already happening. It's the oneness is recognizing itself in more and more body minds, and it really can't be stopped. So for me, what slowed my journey down was the sense that I might mess this awakening up. I might screw it up. But I finally came to realize it's happening despite my resistance. Love is the only force there really is in the universe, and our oneness and love, they're the same to me. So just that desire in our hearts, it's always answered, always answered.
There are probably people wondering, why did we want to experience separation in the first place?
Yeah, well, you've pointed to some of those reasons already, I think,
Mhm.
because the sweetness for me of that first moment of realizing I had never been alone and never been unsafe, never been unworthy, like my mind had constantly told me. That was something that's very difficult to put into words, but maybe you can imagine that you've been standing outside and it's snowing and it's really, really cold and you're shivering, and all of a sudden the door opens and there's a warm fire, and you're told you never have to go out there again, unless you want to bring some others in or whatever. And the contrast is, as you said, it's much more evident on this plane, this physical plane. Um, and it gives us a sense of choice. We can choose oneness over separation. The sense of choice might not be so available on a higher plane because it's the contrast just isn't so noticeable. Those opposites you were talking about.
Well, should we go into the submitted questions?
Sure. Well,
Okay.
is there anything else, Helen, that you'd like uh to share first?
Can't think of anything right now. Nothing is
Okay.
arising. Thank you.
Okay. So we'll take some of the questions that were sent in ahead of time. As always, it's not possible to get to all the questions, and we try to choose ones that will apply to everybody here. So here's one directly about oneness. Can one experience oneness by simply being, or do we have to, quote, work at it? Um, we'll see what Liesel and Helen have to say about this, but it seems to me if you're, quote unquote, working at it, that's going to create more of a sense of a separate self, which would be the opposite of the oneness experience. It makes me think of in Buddhist meditation circles, they talk about the 5 hindrances, the 5 things that get in the way of meditation. And one of them is trying. So trying and working are kind of the same thing. The oneness is already there. It's like an analogy that's often used, it's a calm pond or a calm lake. And any work you do, any trying you do, is just putting ripples on the surface so that you don't notice the calm that is already there. Lisa, anything you want to add to that?
Um, yeah, I think at times it can look like you're working at the getting in touch with the oneness in the form of, maybe meditation or self-inquiry and those sorts of things. I think at first it can look that way. But really what those things, those are just all tools and they're used to kind of strip away the layers of sediment that obscure your direct knowingness that the oneness, as Rob mentioned, is already there. Like you are already completely and utterly oneness and in oneness at all times. Um, it's just that here on this plane, there are a lot of layers that seemingly obscure that. So it's at times it can seem as if we're doing some work, but really what that is about is it's like a diamond that has been in the mud, and you're just rinsing it off. You're getting the mud off to be able to know the brilliance of the diamond. The mud has never actually affected the diamond. The diamond is impermeable to the mud, but momentarily from your vantage point, it can seem as if the diamond is less brilliant because of that mud.
And then what are your thoughts?
Yeah, yeah, if we have those moments where if you've ever had a moment where we're just here, we're just being, and usually they're only very short at first, maybe just a moment where I'm not trying to get somewhere or I'm not pushing against anything so hard, trying to achieve anything. And often those moments come in those darkest times we were just talking about, where I just don't have the energy to try anymore. Um, there's just a kind of resting in our normal state, which is really simple, just a sense of being here. And that's when we might just feel some momentary peace. And really, as you were both saying, all spiritual practice is to remove any obstacles to that recognition that that is our natural state. So our practice is to, our meditation or whatever we're doing, is just to make it clear what's already here. I love that analogy of the diamond in the mud. It's still untainted, but we can't really connect with it while it's covered in mud. So we have many of these moments throughout the day where we're just not really asserting ourselves, trying to get somewhere or get away from something. We might just be chopping vegetables, for example, and there's just for a few seconds no thought activity going on. That's a moment of oneness right there. It's just a very lived, normal experience, and we're really just practicing to make that a continuous way of being. So, yeah.
There's another question that was sent in that also relates to oneness. Even though we understand about our agreed lessons, etc., how can we love humanity when so many people do such terrible things? I want to read to you again part of what Jesus had to say. You may call it Christ consciousness or simply the awareness that we are one, connected by the same flow of life that holds the universe together and sustains all that is. Human beings are essentially the same, and it is this sameness that, if recognized, brings us together and enables us to reach out to one another with a sense of compassion and fellowship. So, one way to do that, to love everybody, is to remember that the essence is the same. No matter what somebody is doing, their essence is divine, just as yours is. They may be very lost in illusion, very lost in separation, doing things that are distortions created by a sense of separation, but their essence is untainted. The essence is pure and divine always. And if you can keep that in mind, you can love the essence, even if you don't love or like or approve of what the body is doing. Lisa, what do you think?
Yeah, I think maybe to go back to the analogy of the came of the diamond in the mud, you know, as a whole, as humanity, we're we're cleansing this mud, and the mud really isn't personal. It can look personal. It can look like, oh, that's that person's stuff, and this is my stuff. But really, it's the oneness, wanting to come home and see that diamond clearly. So I think if you can, remember, like Rob is saying, that it's not that person's essence that is doing those behaviors. It's essentially just a conditioning playing itself out. Um, in a lot of ways, if you had literally the exact same history in terms of conditioning, and including conditioning of past lives, etc., you would behave in exactly the same way. Um, and so a lot of times we just don't know what that conditioning is that another person is operating from. But it's definitely there. So it's sort of one of the things that the beings of light say is, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You can not like somebody's behavior, and you can, absolutely not condone what they're doing, but don't conflate the sense of what they are with that behavior.
Helen?
Yeah, I think loving each other as oneness. I think it's often, as you said, misunderstood as also liking someone's or a sense of accepting or condoning someone's behavior, and it really isn't that. In fact, for me, in my experience from that place of oneness, there was actually finally an ability to say, "This is not what I want." Oh, this is not appropriate behavior. And as we heard also, the sense of the recognition of the essential nature, the oneness, the awareness, or whatever we're calling our true nature, Christ consciousness, is there within each of us, but it may be so covered up by this sense of being a separate being that the sense of being separate to each other is such a distortion of what's actually true, that everything that we do from that place is of separation is disempowered. We can't really see or connect with that oneness. Then the sense of feeling separate feels so real, so true, and our experience keeps agreeing with the fact that we're separate. And it's like walking around with a blindfold on. No matter how much we want to see, we're not gonna see what's really happening. So, for myself, coming out of that place of separation, there was a realization that no being would ever be able to even intend to hurt another being if they recognized the oneness of all of us. But at the same time, the sense of being a separate being feels so completely real when we're lost in it, so real that we might even laugh at someone who says, talks about oneness. I sure did earlier in my life. I thought that's all, weird stuff. So there's compassion there for the essence of that being, whilst we might still keep a healthy distance from someone who is acting in ways that aren't so loving. So, yeah.
There's a question, how can I know what my plan is, meaning pre-birth plan, and what I came here to work on? Now, you know that I'm going to start by recommending the Between Lives soul regression, which is the form of hypnosis that Liesel and I do. For those of you who have not heard about it before, it starts with some preliminary steps to help you relax physically and mentally. Then you go through 4 scenes in a past life, always one that is related in some way to the current lifetime. And then you go from there to talk with loving non-physical beings who can answer your questions about what you planned and what you came here to work on. So the next one, I think, is September 13th, if I remember correctly. And there will also be one, I believe, October 25th. You could also do the Star Souls regression, which Liesel channeled from the beings of light. That is more focused on energy work than information, but you can get a lot of pre-birth planning information there as well. But beyond the hypnosis, a couple simple things to look for: excitement and joy. I always think of excitement and joy as communications direct from your soul saying, yes, this is the way for you. There's something here for you. That's why you feel excited. That's why you feel joyful. You can also look for something that is sometimes called time distortion, or some people call it the flow state. So probably for every one of you, there's at least one activity that when you do it, you will become so immersed in it, so fully present, that it will feel to you like only 10 minutes have gone by, but when you look at the clock, it'll be an hour or 2 later. Any kind of activity that creates that kind of time distortion or flow state for you, there's often something there that is part of your pre-birth plan. Astrology can give you a lot of great information about why you're here, what you're working on. You can work with mediums or channels like I did for the 3 books. There's a body of literature called Gene Codes that can give you some of this information. There's a body of channel literature called the Michael System that can give you a lot of this. Michael here is not a reference to Archangel Michael. Michael is a group consciousness that channeled a lot of information about life plan relative to soul age. Dreams can give you information, particularly if you ask a question before you go to bed. You might ask your team to give you a dream that gives you insight into your pre-birth plan. If you don't get a dream the first night, keep asking on consecutive nights until you get one that you know intuitively is the answer to your question. You could do something like automatic writing, where you train yourself to channel information. Just Google the term automatic writing. I have not tried this myself, but there's something done in India called Nadi leaf reading. Nadi is Nadi. Supposedly, everybody's pre-birth plan is encoded on one particular Nadi leaf. There are centers in India that have collections of these leaves. And it's said that if you walk into one of those, the center you walk into will have the leaf that has the plan for your life embedded in it. So that would be something to try if you go to India. Those are a few of my thoughts. Liesel?
And what I would say actually is there's nothing like awakening more and more to what you are to make your soul plan crystal clear. I find as awakening deepens, there's just a knowing of things. It's just things just become more and more crystal clear. So, yeah. And again, I have to thank Helen for all that I have learned and gained from her. She's certainly made my own sense of what I'm here for become very, very apparent to me.
Helen, what do you think?
I think you, yeah, I mean, almost every being that I come across, my own journey as well. One of the first things I find that we're here for is to learn to love ourselves and to learn to love ourselves unconditionally.
Mm.
And that is, I think, where we all have to start, because we've all had this sense of not quite being enough, not quite fitting in. Especially if we're spiritually inclined, we might feel a little bit like the oddball in the family. And it's been my experience that when we could start to love ourselves by recognizing our real essence, as you were saying, Liesel, but then beginning to kind of understand that our bodies and minds are always an unfolding, an evolution, and that there's a perfection in that unfolding, and it's never going to stop. Not in this lifetime, then the next one as well, and an understanding of why we came here. It starts to dawn in that acceptance of ourselves. There's things I'd like to change about myself or work on, but I'm not going to use it as an excuse to not love myself anymore. That kind of self-love is so nourishing. And we give love so freely to others, but not really to ourselves. And we make that decision inside to start to do that. I've seen it time and time again that, as you were saying, Rob, that sense of just time distorting itself. I could do this thing all day. I really enjoy this thing. It just becomes clearer and clearer, as if it's always been there. But we couldn't hear that purpose because of all the noise in our head and the pain in our hearts.
Mm. Yeah, you know what came as you were speaking just now, Helen, is this deepening. It not only heals the seeming split between ourselves and other, it heals the seeming split within ourselves, where we almost view ourselves as other. We have all these thoughts about ourselves, we have this seeming relationship with ourself, and as we come to see what's really true, that seeming split or schism falls away, and you know love can love itself.
Definitely.
So we'll take some live questions now. For those of you
Well,
who,
before we do, because when we take the live questions, we're going to stop the recording prior to taking the live questions. So I'd just like to take the opportunity for Helen to share about her upcoming 5-week course, Dissolving the Ego.
Thank you. Yeah. It's as you said, Liesel, it's 5 weeks of looking at the things that really we can call them core teachings, but they were the core of what really made a difference in my life. Tools like meditation and self-inquiry, contemplation for me as a way to finally be free of this sense of just being deeply inadequate inside. And each week we look at one of these 5 like pillars of having a healthy awakening to oneness. As we were saying before, that these tools are ways to clear away the obstacles to the light that's already within each of us as us, and cleaning off that mud, I guess, off the jewel of our being. And yeah, everyone is welcome if you feel a calling in your heart to join us. I would love to see you there. Yeah, it's just a beautiful chance to dive into the oneness.
Yeah.
Lisa and I, we've both taken that course, and it made a big difference in our lives.
Yeah. And it was just absolutely just instrumental in the deepening. If you've known me and have felt like or known both Rob and I and watched us, over the years, if you feel like our awakening has deepened, it's very much due to Helen. So I think Stephanie, you may have already posted the link for registering in the chat. Is that the case?
She's giving you a thumbs
So,
up.
what she went?
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Okay, awesome.
So we'll go to live questions. Now, for those of you who are at home watching the recording, we apologize, but the way we always do this is that we stop recording when we take the live questions, because otherwise we have to get the people who are on camera to sign releases, and we didn't want to get involved with that. So we thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you again at the next event.